you ever tried defying gravity? Or maybe at least just singing on a stage? Well, neither have I. But today we'll be talking to someone who has on episode 9 of Channeling Hallmark, the podcast where we talk about all the things that make us feel warm and fuzzy, like when your favorite song starts playing while you're alone in your car and you just have to sing along. We're your hosts, Dylan Cashbaugh
and Keetin Markey.
And today is a very special episode.
Yes.
Because in honor of her birthday, today's episode is all about my amazing wife, Keetin Markey. Today, we're going to talk about some of Keetin's favorite things. So, Keetin, tell us about it.
Well, today, we're going to talk about a movie that probably brought me the most warm and fuzzies last year and it's brought me warm and fuzzies for over 20 years, I would say, Wicked. And we'll also be talking to my favorite neighbor who we've ever had, as well as somebody who was in the stage play Wicked, our friend Jye.
But before we get into all that, Keetin, you got some tea over there?
Oh, I do. Okay. So today we're drinking some yogi tea. It's green tea kombucha. Supplies antioxidants to support overall health. And with it still being kind of cold and flu season, it's important to keep your health in check. So are we ready to try it? Let's see.
Let's do it.
I like it. It's like a very mild green tea.
Yeah, I guess
I feel healthier already.
I'm curious how if at all, the kombucha is a factor at all, because my understanding was that kombucha is fermented tea.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe this is it's great for fermenting, but it tastes kind of just like pretty regular green tea to me.
Green is my favorite color.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now that we've sipped some tea,
Yep.
Keetin, instead of spilling tea, do you want to share some hot cocoa with us?
Well, my hot cocoa is my birthday. You know what? I'm just going to say it. I turned 36 this year. So I'm kind of in my late 30s now, which is wild. I still feel like I'm 16. We had I guess I hosted my own birthday party.
Yeah, I did very little.
On top of everything we were exhaustively, I decided to host a birthday party called the Keetin's Favorite Things birthday party. I'm not a narcissist, but it was a really fun theme and I highly recommend it. And I encouraged people to dress up as things that they thought I really liked. So some honorable mentions that showed up at the party are Phantom from Phantom of the Opera. We had Rhysand and Feyre from the ACOTAR series. We had a lot of Taylor Swift references. Oh, my husband, Dylan, dressed as Nerds Clusters, which is my favorite candy. We did karaoke. We had a ranch off because I'm obsessed with ranch dressing. So I had everybody bring a ranch and we picked our favorites. And my friend Casey did a Keetin trivia. So it was just a lot of fun and very disco ball themed. And I'm just really grateful. And it was one of my most memorable birthday parties, I think, in Los Angeles. And I had full control. Another honorable mention is the cutout that showed up in my house. It was a life-size cutout of Elphaba. But my friend Jared AI'd my face on it, so it looks like I'm Elphaba, and I'm obsessed with Wicked. So it was perfect, and now it lives in our house with us forever.
Yeah, good. We'll definitely have to post a photo of the Keetin cutout that is currently staring at me from the corner of our room, because it's pretty great. Yeah. Another thing we'll have to post a photo of is my hot cocoa, because my hot cocoa is these super awesome pajamas that my wife got us for Valentine's Day. Keetin's birthday, day before Valentine's Day. So they always go hand in hand. And she got us these amazing pajamas that might be the most comfortable pajamas I've ever worn, but also have what looks so much like our logo on them. It's just these two adorable cups of tea, cocoa, coffee. I don't know. Open to interpretation.
The print, shout out to MeUndies. The print is called "I Love You a Latte," so I guess they're two lattes.
Okay.
But I literally saw these and I was like, "Oh my god, we have to own every article of clothing that's made with this fabric."
We do, and though they may be called "I Love You a Lattes," I feel like in my head they're always going to be hot cocoa because they make me feel like hot cocoa makes me feel.
I love that.
Thanks for that, Keats.
You're so welcome. We're both wearing them right now. They're so comfy.
Well, do we want to get into our review of Wicked?
Before Dorothy came into the picture in Wizard of Oz, Elphaba and Glinda were just students at Shiz University. Though they started out as enemies, they soon became friends and started down a path that would change Oz forever. Based off the 2003 musical Wicked, that was based off the 1995 book Wicked, that was inspired by the 1939 film Wizard of Oz, that was based off the 1900 novel The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, a version of this story has been told for over 100 years, and it is still hitting with audience no matter what format.
Wow, very true. Mm-hmm. Starring Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba and Ariana Grande as Galinda or Glinda, depending on which point in the movie we're talking about. This John M. Chu directed movie tells us the backstory to one of the most iconic films of all time, and teaches us that just because someone looks different doesn't mean they can't change the course of history. Now, we have both seen this show on stage a number of times before we saw it as a movie. So starting out with the tough questions, when you get in the car, Keetin, and you want to listen to music from Wicked, are you putting on the movie soundtrack or the Broadway soundtrack?
That's a rude question, but I'm definitely putting on the Broadway soundtrack, and it's only because of the nostalgia with it. Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth were iconic in 2003, and I've had 20 years of listening to that and memorizing their riffs. As a musical theater junkie and nerd, I absolutely the musical one. No shade to Ariana and Cynthia, who, in my opinion, were the perfect casting for this film.
Yeah, I guess I'll use that as a jumping point to admit something that I'm not proud of, but I do feel obligated to share it. And that is that when the casting announcement was made that Ariana Grande was going to be Glinda, I had doubts. I was not confident in her abilities to pull off this role. And boy, was I wrong.
And I told you were going to eat your words. I did, because as soon as she got cast, you were like, she's a pop star. And I was like, no, have you never seen Ariana act? Like, she is hysterical. And I feel like they were really big shoes to fill for Idina and Kristen. And you also really wanted two women who were going to have the chemistry that Idina and Kristen had. You wanted two women that could sing, but you also, specifically with the Galinda part, want someone who's funny, because it is hard to like that character if you don't humanize her a little bit. And I feel like her comedy can be totally over the top how she's written, but Ariana had that wonderful balance of just her as a human, and then just was so ridiculously funny. And whenever Ariana Grande hosts SNL, I'm like, it's going to be a great episode. And so I had all the faith in our girl, truly.
Yeah.
Ha. I told you so.
Yep. Fair. I deserve that. And I think, you touched on this briefly, but yeah, those two, this movie was made by those two leads. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo are so good together. You can tell just like watching the press tour and everything, how much they click together and how their personal chemistry affected their chemistry on screen, and just makes it such a joyful, fun experience to watch this movie. I want to watch it again right now. I could do it every day.
And not to miss out on the amazingness that Jonathan Bailey also brought to the screen as Fiyero. I loved Jonathan Bailey from Bridgerton, and I loved to see his star rise, and to see him come into like his first huge feature film blockbuster and nail it in a way, because he is not the main character, right? But he did not overshadow either of these women. He literally like helped enhance their performances. He clicked with them. I cannot wait to see what he brings to part 2, because if you know the story of Wicked, his part definitely becomes a little bigger.
No spoilers though.
That also sounded a little dirty.
His part becomes bigger in part 2. Wow.
I'm so sorry you cut that out.
Yes, Jonathan Bailey was amazing. Everyone honestly was. Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Yeoh. Like, this had such a good cast.
It was so freaking good. And also everybody, like the set design, the costume design, this world was so immersive, and just, you could tell that every single person who was brought onto this film put their whole heart into it. And it was was such a joy to watch every little detail. And I feel like this is something that John M. Chu does in his films. Like, he just brings a bunch of nerds for their craft together and gets them so hyped about the project they're working on that, like, there is no way it's not going to be incredible.
How about the choreography?
Oh my God.
Like, Dancing Through Life especially, but so many numbers. But Dancing Through Life, that dancing around the library, rotating bookshelves, so much fun, so many people involved.
Parkour
and it was
artist.
So good.
Like, it was wild. I mean, you know, the one dance for Loathing, or What Is This Feeling? Sorry, went viral with the tapping on the book and stuff, and everybody was doing it and reenacting it and stuff. So it just, I will say this. I am a Wicked fanatic, and I know a lot of people were over. There was a lot of Wicked in the media. Their press tour was wild. They spent a lot of money on the marketing for this. And I even got a little overwhelmed. But it was absolutely worth the hype. And if you have not seen it, you are missing out. I mean, there is a reason it's nominated for 10 Oscars this year. There is a reason, because it was one of the best films overall last year, in my opinion.
And shout out to the choreographer, Christopher Scott, who did such an amazing job. There's definitely some movies that have a big budget and you kind of wonder, where did that all go? This one, you see it on screen. Mm-hmm. Everything feels like there's so much depth, so much quality, and so much care behind it that I feel like not a penny was wasted on Wicked.
Well, and I also just feel like, going back to the acting, all of those actors really, really leaned in to kind of the pressure that had to be on them bringing this musical that they've been talking about doing a musical adaptation or a movie adaptation of Wicked for years. And so to finally get those roles, Ariana, who has been like vying for this role probably for like since she was a child, since she initially saw it. She trained in classical music, so she was trained like a traditional Glinda. I mean, and then Cynthia doing it it was so good. And anybody who wants to hate on Wicked, you're just a hater and a troll. Like, you can't watch that movie and not be like, wow, that is a lot of people at the peak of their artistry.
Yeah, I think if I had to look for a critique of the movie, I would say maybe it
not
could
enough
be
Jonathan Bailey. I get it. Not enough Jonathan.
You know, that's fair.
I'm so sorry.
Not what I was going to say. What I was going to say is I could see it being a little bit shorter. It is kind of long. And though I, as a bit of a Wicked nerd and a Broadway nerd, really enjoyed all of it, I feel like it probably could put off a lot of audiences where they might not want to sit through a over 2.5 hour movie that is just part one. I get it.
I'm sorry you're not a happy person if that is your vibe in life, but it made me cry. It made me feel all the feels. It made me feel super warm and fuzzy, and I can't wait to talk to Jye, who's been in the stage play, about what he feels about the movie being so close to just the story.
But before we get to Jye, Keetin, how many marshmallows would you give Wicked?
10 out of 10.
Wow.
I went into this movie, I had such high expectations, and it was one of those things that it met every single one of them. And just kudos to the filmmakers, the actors, everything. 10 out of 10 marshmallows. I was sobbing at the end because it gave me all the feels.
See, now I'm just jealous of your life that you must be experiencing right now, because this is the second movie in a row you have given 10 marshmallows to. You must be overwhelmed with just warm and fuzzy right now.
I mean, this is what happens when it's your birthday.
Wow. Best birthday week ever.
I mean, Paddington and Wicked?
Yeah.
No notes.
Yeah.
Dylan, what's your marshmallow rating for Wicked?
You know, I did love it a lot, but I can't give it 10 out of 10. I will, though, give it 9. 9 marshmallows.
How dare you?
I mean,
you can go.
Honestly, I might have given it 10 marshmallows had we
10?
Not just watched Paddington in Peru, which to me is that additional marshmallow quality. So for me, it's very good. Wicked gives me so much warm and fuzzy, just not quite as much as Paddington in Peru.
I feel like you don't have the nostalgia to Wicked as I do.
I first saw Wicked when I was, I believe, 16 years old on a stage in Chicago. So
Was it one of your senior quotes?
I don't think we had senior quotes, to be honest.
Because you are from Indiana. No.
That's true. They didn't trust us to know how to read and write well enough to have senior quotes. Anyways, why don't we get to Jye?
I can't wait to get to Jye.
Stay tuned, and up next, we will be talking to the wonderful performer, Jye Frasca. Today, our guest is Jye Frasca, a screen and stage actor currently living in Los Angeles. From adaptations of Hemingway novels to indie noir thrillers, Jye has been in countless projects over the years, earning accolades and awards. The reason we're bringing him on this episode specifically, though, is because he played Bach on the Broadway production of Wicked and is one of Keatin's favorite neighbors. But before we get into that, I want to know, what is it about performance that brings you joy and makes you stick with what can be a very challenging career path?
Wow. Hi, first of all.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So I absolutely feel that for me personally, performing is something that is just within me. I like telling stories. I like when I'm doing theater to be in front of a live audience. I love when I'm doing filming work that it's a little bit more intimate between you, the crew, and whoever you're doing your scene with. But my main thing is that I feel like it brings people joy. And personally, whether I'm doing it, like whether I'm acting, no matter what I'm doing, or even if I'm just me being me in normal life, if I can like throw you a smile and bring you a bit of joy, then that's kind of what I like to do. But I suppose like performing is like an extreme extension of that, where you feel like people will either take away something from the story, learn something from the story, feel like they're getting some kind of experience. And for example, when you're doing live theater, when you get that reaction off the audience that is basically affirming that, there is no other feeling in the world like it. It's incredible. And those amazing moments get you through the difficult times of what it takes day to day to be an actor, because obviously people looking from the outside in see all the highs and all the achievements and what you're doing, but people don't see the daily grind, the dedication, the training, what it takes, the rejection, because that is real. And, you know, you have to kind of navigate your way through that. And it can be tricky. It can be really tricky. Really tricky.
That was an amazing segue. So can you tell us a little bit about your career and your journey into acting and where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Australia. I grew up in Australia, and I started when I was 9 dancing and singing and acting. And I started actually tap dancing first, because I had tried, Australia is very sport orientated. Mm-hmm. And so I tried every sport, but was not good at any of them. I'm the most uncoordinated person when it comes to sports. And I actually went on a holiday with my mom and my uncle and my sister, and we went to New York. And whilst we were there, we saw a production, or the production, of A Chorus Line that was running at the time on Broadway. And my uncle, because I was so small at the time, he sat me on his knee and he said, "Do you want to be up there doing that?" And I said to him, "Yes." So cut to, we come home from our holiday. My mum throws me into this tap dancing class, and I actually cried the entire way there. I didn't want to go. I was so scared. I don't know what it was. I remember crying, being like, I don't want to go. And I got there. I was the only boy there. It was a classroom full of girls. And even though I was so uncoordinated at sports, it literally was like putting a fish in water. I just took to it so quickly. I enjoyed it so much. I cried all the way there. I smiled all the way back. I was all of a sudden thrown into these 2 numbers for this Christmas concert. And after that Christmas, I started doing like everything else, like ballet, jazz, singing, acting, everything. And it just became my life. And there was really no looking back after that. Like, it was just meant to be. It just was like two meetings of like something that you're meant to do and something that I didn't know I wanted to do. But as soon as I got into that class, that's what I wanted to do. And my very first dance teacher, Miss Melanie.
Shout out Miss Melanie.
Shout out Miss Mel. She was just incredible with me. So then I trained up until the age of 16 in Australia, and I got I'm from Newcastle in Australia, which is about 2 hours drive north of Sydney. And so around about the age of like 14, I started going to Sydney to take more classes and do more stuff. And when I was 15, there was like an audition for a school in London. And my mum thought it would be good practice for me to go and audition. Yeah. So I did. And it was an all-day thing. We started off doing like a ballet class, then a jazz class, then I had to go sing a song, then I had to do like a monologue. And at the end of that process, there was like an interview with the director of the school who happened to be there. And they told me that I'd been accepted to the London Studio Centre in London, to which, again, I'm going to sound like a real crier, but I got in a cab afterwards and was on the way back to my mum, and I was crying because I knew that I was going to have to go. Like, I knew the opportunity that I was being given all of a sudden out of nowhere was going to be too great an opportunity to ever turn down. Yeah. But I was also 15. So my mum spoke to them at the school and said, he's 15. It's a 24-hour flight away. All my family's in Australia as well. I don't have any family in England. And so she was like, can we defer him going to the college? And he was like, absolutely. But to make sure that he comes, we're going to give him a full scholarship. I mean, so it was just meant to be. It makes me actually want, I don't know why, it makes me want to tear up a little bit. Because, you know, you go through life and it's not until you have moments like this where you actually stop and reflect. Yeah. So at the much more mature age of 16, I left Australia and went to London. And in that year of deferring the scholarship, I actually got another scholarship to Steps on Broadway in New York. Wow. So on the way to London, we actually went via America and went to New York. I did like 2 weeks there and then went to London. And I was meant to do like a 3-year musical theatre course. And as things just happened, halfway through my first year, the guy who was playing the lead in the third year show got a job. And so they needed someone to replace him. And they asked me if I would replace him. And it was to play Claude in Hair. So I went from being in the first year to joining the third year, playing the lead in Hair. I got my first agent because it's like a showcase where people come along. And then throughout the summer of that year, I started auditioning for stuff. And right as I was about to go back to start my second year at college, I got my first West End show and I was 17.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it was crazy. It was, when I think back to it now, it's like, even just repeating the story, it's like this crazy whirlwind that seems so surreal. Like if you were to tell me that that's what like my nephew was going to do, for example, I'd be like, oh my God, that's like so out there. But it just felt so right. And everything kind of just fell into place. Yeah. And I'm super grateful that I got to start, you know, in the West End and at such a young age. And my first show was West Side Story, and I was like so excited that it was like a classic musical piece, that the music and the dancing, and it's like a triple threat show as well. You have to do absolutely everything. So that was amazing.
Well, speaking of you being a triple threat, do you have a favorite of dancing, singing, or acting?
No, I don't. I think depending on what a role, I think my first love, if I'm being completely honest with you, is acting. Even as a dancer, I was never a, say, natural dancer in ability, but I made myself be able to like do 6 pirouettes and jump the highest and split my legs. But I think why I was a good dancer is because I could act through the movement. And I think why I'm able to sing well is because I'm able to portray whatever that song requires through the choices of an actor singing a song. So I would say my first love has probably always been acting, even if I didn't really realize it. And now as I'm gotten a little older, it's like if that role requires you to do all three things, it's so interesting for me to sort of think about why. But it's always from the actor's point of view.
During your career, you have done screen, you have done stage, you have danced, sang, acted. You've done such a range of things that so many times actors, they find a type and they just focus on that and do that. You have done such a range of things. I guess, what is it that makes you want to do that range? And do you feel like that makes things harder or easier to just go wherever your heart takes you?
I think that, oh my God, that's such an amazing question. I think when I first started in my career, I just loved the idea of being on stage. And listen, I was very, very fortunate. I think by the time I was 28, I'd done 12 West End shows, and I was able to do shows that required, like West Side Story, like The Triple Threat. Then I did Mamma Mia, where that's more of a singer-actor show. Then I did Cats, which is really heavily dance-orientated. Then We'll Rock You, which is a huge rock vocal demanding show. But then I was able to do plays like Love's Labour's Lost, like classic Shakespeare at the National Theatre with Sir Trevor Nunn directing us. And then went to do Jersey Boys, where it was like the most incredible story, and it was almost directed cinematically, but it was on stage, and you're telling this life story of someone and having to sing all their hits and then also portray all the tragedy that happens behind the scenes. And if I'm being completely honest, when I was in the earlier part of my career, I was just auditioning or being asked to do stuff, and you just kind of go, well, this is what's happening. And it wasn't until after Jersey Boys in London that I started to think, what do I want to do now? Like, what do I want to do? Because I had done 12 West End shows by that point, and I, very happily keep on doing them. Like, it's amazing. But what do I want to do? And I always loved the idea of doing, especially because I had done, after Jersey Boys, I did Two Hands, a show that was a musical, but there was no applause break. So it was like doing a play, even though you were doing a musical. And then straight after, that was called Thrill Me, that show. And then straight after that, I did Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises, which was a play. And I just started to enjoy, because when you're doing a play, the reaction comes at the very end of the show. Of course, there can be laughs and stuff like that, but it feels more cinematic. And then I started to go, oh, can I do this on screen? And so, of course, me being me, sometimes things just happen and it's wonderful. And I was like, maybe I'd like to do a film. And then out of nowhere, I was offered the lead in a film. So, and that film was like a super low budget, rough, indie, hard kind of slog to get through. But it was also the best kind of training and experience to do that. And then once I did that, I was like, oh no, I love this. But I love it all. I don't have anything that I openly go, oh, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm so happy to do whatever, especially if the role speaks to me. Like, for example, last year I was just doing another play back in London. It'd been the first time I'd been back on stage there in like about 10 years. But the role was just so incredible. I was like, there's no way I cannot do that.
As you were listing off all the West End shows you'd been in, I'm like, how many times might I have seen you on stage when I
know,
was
isn't
in
that
London?
crazy?
It's crazy, which is one of the craziest things is when we met Jye as our neighbor, we didn't know a ton of, I knew you and your partner were actors, but we didn't really know much more other than that. And they were our lovely human beings. So we were like drawn to them.
You're also living in LA where every second person's an actor. So,
But then come to find out that, he did perform in Wicked. You performed on Broadway, as well as you were the understudy on the West End.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah. So my journey with Wicked started in London with the original company in London. So when that show was coming to London, everyone wanted to be in Wicked because obviously it had just become a huge hit on Broadway. And they were bringing Idina Menzel over to do the show in London. So everyone wanted to be part of Wicked. And I was so fortunate to be cast in the ensemble and be the understudy to Bach. And James Gillan was playing Bach in the original production there. And we had the best year. It was like being in a rock concert every night. And it was a new show. It was so exciting. And it wasn't until actually 10 years later that I was asked to play Bach on Broadway by the director, Joe Mantello.
And what's amazing is I'm pretty sure I saw you on stage in the West End.
You will have, because I don't miss a show.
Yeah, which is so wild. Then to 15, almost 20 years later, you live 2 doors down from me. It is crazy.
It is crazy.
It's wild. Well, so speaking of Wicked, now that we're talking about it, it was huge for you to be a part of it. It's obviously still, I know how much you love it. You and I went to see the movie together. I love it, and I love that you love it, and I love that the world loves it. They loved it already, but now so many more people are getting to see it. And it brings me such joy. What is it about it that you love so much beyond kind of your connection to it? But what is it about the story at its core that you connect with? I think what is probably the most special aspect of Wicked is that it gives people inspiration to follow their heart's desire and to fly no matter what. And I think that why it's so relatable to people is because this journey between 2 women, 2 strong women, 2 powerful women, they have to both learn how to fly in the end. One has to learn how to fly in a bubble and not necessarily be as free as what she would have liked to have been. And one has to learn to fly freely, not caring about what people are saying about her or think about her. And I think when people come see the show, young, old, male, female, and in between, I think what they find is that they see these 2 women metaphorically flying. And if they can, why can't I? There's lots of little things as well within the story that are so special. But if you're asking me what is it about that story that I think people relate to the most? I think that is why at the end in the show, at the end of Act 1 or at the end of this film, people cry. Yeah. People are sat there crying. I mean, I could cry about it now. I tell you what happened to me. I've seen the film 4 times. Okay. You have me beat. I've seen the film 4 times. And the first time I went with my mum because she was over in LA. And, it's also so interesting because I've never been an audience. Actually, I have been an audience member when I've seen the show, between doing the show in London and Broadway. I went and saw the show on Broadway. But the last time I was involved with the show, I did a 1.5 years on Broadway. I'm not sat in the audience. So you forget the impact that it can have. And I went with my mum and I was utterly speechless because it's so magnificently done. But it was also, I couldn't take it all in because it is so amazing. Yeah. And we had decided to go together, and we actually delayed it for about a week. And I thought, I can't wait. So I went by myself up to Universal City and sat there, and it was a matinee, so it was quite quiet. But these 2 girls were sat 2 seats away from me. And at the end of the film, it will make me kind of well up. At the end of the film, they were both sat there in tears. And I sat there as the credits were rolling, and I could, I could just kind of see them out the corner of my eye. And I turned to them actually, and I said, "Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt." I said, "But your reaction to watching the film is just everything." And they were like, "Oh my God, it's so amazing, isn't it?" I was like, "Yeah, it really is." And I think I was like, "Anyway, have a good day and see you later." And obviously they don't realize my connection to, but it felt wrong not to kind of be like,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and I suppose as well, like what Wicked does kind of teach people, and when in its entirety is about connection. It's about understanding and connection to people, which is important in this day and age. But also, you know, if you see someone and you think they look nice, you should say, hey, you look great. Or, you know, like if someone's done a nice thing, like, thank you. Like we're so isolated, I think, because of world events, and we've still trying to come out of all of that. It's nice to kind of just connect on the most basic of levels.
One of the things that I feel like I've connected with you on, and also I think the reason we were so drawn together, is because you have such a positive mindset and you just radiate light. And I think you and I have had conversations regarding kind of living in LA and how sometimes it gets tough and all of this stuff. But you've been so kind to share such insight on mindset, and you even sent me a book about it. And so I just wanted to talk to you about the power of mindset and kind of your feelings about it and how it's kind of helped you navigate kind of this crazy town and career.
You know, funny enough, I read a quote in the last week, and I'm going to quote it wrongly, but the main part of the quote was, "Can you be the light?" And thank you for what you just said. My God, I'm so flattered. But I suppose when I read that, even though you very generously just said about me being a light, I suppose, you know, we are all human. We all have moments, and listen, being an actor, it's a wonderful career. It's a tough career, and I just think that more and more and more as I go through, it's not even can you be the light, but also does this situation that you're either navigating through, whether it be you're at the top of your game or whether you are struggling, does the situation mean that you have to give away your light or diminish your light? I think that each of us, every single human being in the world, has a light. And we can either choose to shine it or we can choose to not. Even in the most horrendous of circumstances, which, of course, people go through horrendous things in this world. But you do have a choice on how to deal with it. And I always feel like if you're shining your light, that the darkness can't stay for very long because there is light. And what is meant to come to you is attracted to that particular light. So I feel like you can either choose to sit in the darkness or even just have that little bit of ray of hope and shine your light. Because again, it's one thing for things to affect you. That's the way of the world. There will be things that affect us all. But are you willing to let it infect you? Because once that happens, it's really hard then to get rid of stuff, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think that it's important for everyone, and not to take it back to Wicked, but I think that is kind of also, there is a similarity there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like speaking your truth and speaking it from a point that is of actual consciousness. We're not yelling, we're not screaming, we're not accusing. We're just speaking one's truth. Then I think that people are able to at least hear it, whether they agree with it or not, and receive it in some form. You may still choose to agree to disagree, but there isn't like, it's not as ramped up. And I just think it's important, like in life, like as human beings. And then I think as an actor, because it is a job where there are so many amazing highs, and then there are a lot of times where there is no's, or you're getting super close to stuff, but it's a no, and this no. And it's like, well, I can either sit in the darkness of that no, or I can look within myself, shine, and know that eventually what is meant for me is going to come to me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Again, you're giving me all the goosebumps.
Sorry, that reminds me of one of my favorite moments from one of my favorite TV shows, where Celeborn says, "It is not strength that overcomes darkness, but light."
Amen. You know, it is especially in this moment in time that we're all living in, people have very strong views, and I have very strong views myself. But I think everyone really wants to be seen and heard.
Absolutely.
That is actually an Oprah-ism that I think seriously, I think...
Thank you, Oprah.
Thank you, Oprah. Everyone wants to be truly seen and truly heard. That does not mean that we have to all agree or be on the same page or anything like that. But I think if you truly see someone and you truly hear someone, you have more of an understanding of where people are coming from and what they, and how they authentically feel. Because it's coming out of not a reaction, it's coming out of this is just how they feel. And of course, if they can truly see and hear you as well, hopefully it's reciprocated. And then you can agree to disagree, or you can have at least a bit of understanding. Like there are lots of things in the world that I, don't understand or don't agree with how people feel about certain things. But I do like to hold space for being able to listen and learn and feel educated from where that point of view is coming from. And also, so then I can have my own point of view of how I feel about that.
Yeah.
And I think also when you operate like that, people can scream at you and you can be like, okay, that's fine. Or people can call you names and you can be like, well, that's not cool. But if you stop and don't react and really center yourself and think, well, where is that coming from? And it's not you personally. And then you're able to kind of keep a bit of your light shining and move forward.
I always like to do this whenever I especially talk to an artist or something, and we're talking about mindset. We're talking about where we're focusing our light. Let's manifest real quick.
Okay.
Do you have a dream role?
I don't have like a specific dream role.
Even if it's a vague dream role.
I have. So this is the funny thing about me. I have many dreams. I have many dreams that I feel within myself absolutely 100% know will happen. Don't ask me how I know, but I just feel it. But I also think the most powerful way to manifest something is to keep it locked within yourself, to be able to be exactly what you and the universe are working out together. And therefore, nothing from the outside comes in to distort that in any way whatsoever. So that's a really not an interesting answer to your question, but I think we share so much of ourselves these days online and stuff like that. And I think that there are some things that, well, this is how I operate. I think there's some things that I like to keep really sacred. And I think the dream and aspirations that I have are best served kept there just between me and the universe to work on, because I don't know when they will happen, but I know that I've been really fortunate that when I think, I'd like to do that, it comes up somewhere. But I think it's because I've always been like this. I've always been like, I'm not one to be like, I'm going to do this. 9 times out of 10, if I've ever been like that, that doesn't really happen. Or it doesn't happen the way that you want it to, and blah, blah, blah. But this, yeah, I think that's a good way to manifest, is to kind of have it be internal.
Oh.
But I also don't mean like just keeping it to yourself for keeping it to yourself's sake. I mean like keeping it to yourself, putting it down into the pit of your stomach, into your soul, and saying, this is what I see, this is what I dream about, this is what I would like, this is what I feel. And then releasing it to the powers that be and go, do your work. Because I don't know how it will happen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking about something specifically now, which I know is going to kill you because I'm not going to tell you what it is. But I am specifically thinking about something now, but I do not know how I get there, but it's not for me to know.
Okay. No, I love that. But when it happens, will you let me know?
Absolutely. You will know.
Okay, great. Can't wait.
You will absolutely know.
Can't wait.
and again, I think also, if you don't limit, like if you don't go specifically, this is it, I think you're limiting the magic of the power of the universe to actually bring you what it is. Because sometimes things come along. For example, when I got this role in this play that I just did, it was a dream role. But, 2 weeks before I'd auditioned for it, I wouldn't have thought that it was going to come to me. So it came. I've been thinking about the fact that wouldn't it be nice to be back in London and to do a show again? And wouldn't it be nice if it required me to possibly dance, because I haven't danced on stage in a long time. And, even though it was a play, there was like 1 or 2 musical moments in that as well. And so this perfect role that I'd kind of just thought about in my head, but never really specifically put out like vocally, came to me. And then when it comes, it almost was even better than I could have ever imagined it to be.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by that. Like if you get I think you should be specific internally, but if you get too specific outwardly, it then starts to negate where you go and what you do. And I think then you're almost limiting, because again, another saying is you can dream big, but you can't dream as big as what the universe, God, or anything else can actually dream that dream for you. They can always dream a bigger dream for you.
Yeah.
So I've kind of taken a bit of peace in that and gone, okay, this is what I know I would like to do, or this is what I would know I would like to happen, but how that happens, don't know. And how I think it could happen is nothing in comparison to probably how it will happen.
Yeah.
We now live in a world where we're always looking at people's stuff, right? So it's like, and people go, oh, they're doing that, I'd like to do that. And I go, that's great. But do you want to do that, what that person is specifically doing? Or do you want that kind of thing to happen for you, but in a more specific way for you? Because that person's already living that journey. Why would you want to do exactly that? Then it's just the same. And it can't be, they're them and you were you. So it can't be the same. And like another saying, I've got so many sayings, but it is like when you are running your own race, you always win. But if you look to the side, you start to fall behind.
Yeah.
So run your own race. It's wonderful when I often have, like when I would meet people at the stage door, aspiring actors say, I want to have a career like you. And I would always turn to them and say, thank you so much. That's so sweet. But you know what? You can have your own career that could be 10 times better. Just believe in yourself. And I suppose the just believe in yourself part of the end is look within yourself, because what I'm doing is really cool. But also you might be able to do something that no one's ever done before. And then you're limiting yourself if you're just thinking, I want to do what this person's doing. Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
Being an actor is difficult in the respect that it's, actually, funny enough, on the drive up here, I passed my acting coach's studio. And on the side of the wall there's a mural and it says, I'm just beginning. And that can mean many things to many people. What I always take from it is that Lee is saying to you, in every moment that you have a new beginning. Like right now is new. And now we're here and it's new. Whatever happened in the past, it's happened. It's there to teach you something. But if you stay in the past, you are not in the present and you cannot move forward to what the world has in store for you. And, don't get me wrong, this has taken like years to kind of figure out because, I think why I'm able to talk about it so freely as well is because, well, actually, I don't talk about it that often. It's only because we're like doing this. But like, I think why I'm able to express it somewhat coherently is that it's taken, being in the dark places to go, well, how was that working out? Not great. So what do? Are you going to stay there? Sure, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to fight my way out of it. And after about 50 punches on a metaphoric cement wall, how's your wrist? It's pretty crap. It's pretty bloody, you're just beating yourself up. So this isn't working. So what should you do? Oh, I need to like look within myself, remember what it is I want to do, whether it be acting or what is life? What do I want to put out in the world? So, for example, you can be having a really rough time in your career and you go to the grocery store and you go to the mall, and you go here, and before you know it, you've just like grouched around town. And that energy, it's being put out there every second that you're out there. Or you can be like, okay, I'm having a rough time. I'm going to the grocery store. I see someone who's struggling. Hey, do you need a hand? Yeah, excellent. Good deed. Like, you've helped someone. Or you see someone who is seemingly just walking past. They might look a bit stern, and all you do is pleasantly smile at them. Whether they smile back or not, you've just then imparted some sort of positivity. And what goes out comes back. So, for example, if you're going to be in the dark place, you're going to stay in the dark place, because what you're putting out is dark and it's going to come back dark. But if you're putting out the light and positivity in the world, which is at times not, it can be challenging. But if you are putting that out, the law of attraction is it is going to come back. And you have to put it out there, not expecting it to come back. Not for it to, you're not doing it as a means to an end. You're putting it out there because it's the right thing to do. And you also get through your day a little bit better. And it's almost like I've had moments where I have actively gone, something's really like pissed me off. And I've been really actively upset. And I've literally had to stop and look at myself in the mirror and go, how long you want to carry that around for? And I actually would end up kind of chuckling to myself because it's kind of funny. Do you know what I mean? And then before you know, I've had one of the best days of my life. Yeah. Because as an actor, so much of what we do is so much of how you live your life is geared around getting the next job, doing the next audition and all of that. But in between all of that is life. And if you're not living, how can you be a good actor to portray people who are living their life? It's just, it goes around in a bit of a figure eight because it is all connected. We all have a choice in how we want to be and what we want to do. And you either choose to move forward in a way that is of light, or you choose to hold yourself back and everyone else around you by, festering in your own darkness. That's just how I feel about it.
That idea of positivity and hopefulness, honestly, is a big reason why we started this podcast, because as sappy as it sounds, we kind of get that feeling watching Hallmark movies or silly rom-coms that just make us feel like, all right, everything's going to be all right in the world if we kind of try to be that light in the world.
Right.
And one way, I guess, that we embody that in these episodes is a thing that we call our hot cocoa, where basically each week we share something that we experienced or we saw online or on social media or something in the news that kind of gave us that warm and fuzzy feeling, gave us that hope and positivity. What is some recent hot cocoa from your life?
Ooh, funny enough, on my phone, screen grabbed this from no other than Viola Davis's Instagram.
Queen.
And it's the last photo in my photos. And now that you've asked me this question, I suppose it's a good time to share it. I didn't know why I screenshotted it at the time, but maybe it was for this. And it says, "You're not being denied access to the life you want. You're being prepared for deeper alignment and more clarity. Stay patient." And I just thought, yeah, isn't that cool? And I'm not even talking about that on a career sense. I'm talking about that in just like everyday life. Every moment we are being granted an opportunity for what's happening right now. And some people, I think, go through life and they're missing like days, weeks, months at a time because they're so bogged down by other stuff. And there's a lot to be bogged down about. I'm not saying that there's not, but it's like to stay present and know, from the last part of that quote, stay patient. What I personally take from that is trust. Because it's easy to be patient if you already trust that what will be, and what's meant is going to happen. So that kind of gave me a warm and fuzzy. Thanks, Miss Viola Davis. I love you.
I love that.
Just thank you. Like, I genuinely, I got a little emotional during a lot of that.
Oh.
And that was so inspiring. So thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
I feel like anyone listening to this will be a better person after hearing you speak.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for having me on, because thoroughly enjoyed. It wasn't actually, I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't expect that we were going to be really talking about what we've talked about. But I've loved it. I've loved having this conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on my birthday episode.
Oh my God, happy birthday!
Thank you. That was such a lovely interview with Jye. And I'm so grateful that he came on my birthday episode. But make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes. And Dylan, where can they follow us on social media?
They can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky, where we are at Channeling Hallmark. They can also follow us on our individual Instagram accounts. I'm at DP Cashpaw.
And I'm at Keetin Markey.
Or I'm on Letterboxd at DP Cashpaw as well. I don't think I've given up hope that Keetin will ever post on Letterboxd, so
maybe
I don't
for
think
Wicked
we
I
even need
will.
to try. We'll see. But don't forget to channel Hallmark in your life.
Stay cozy, y'all. Bye-bye.
Channeling Hallmark is an independently produced podcast and is neither sponsored nor sanctioned by Hallmark or any other entity. Thank you for listening.